Hello and welcome to another episode of the Golden Hour Podcast. I'm your host, David Altizer.
And Connor McCaskill.
And we're here to talk again about Sony versus Canon.
Yeah, are we?
No, I'm
oh,
joking.
okay. I was like, I didn't respect that.
No, we appreciate all the comments, all the support on the last couple of videos. We've been honestly a little blown away by the response. So if you're new here, welcome to the show. Feel free to look at our back catalog. We have a lot of other guests that we've had on.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the new format. Connor and Dave here doing our thing with occasional guests.
I kind of like that vibe. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
me too.
the
you're
occasional
involved.
guest is fun. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That I am a little biased, aren't I?
Yeah, so I want to start the show off today with a tweet that I posted that kind of went a little wild.
Oh, okay.
I posted a tweet that said, "Reminder, buying a camera won't make you happy."
Oh,
Yeah,
you're getting
hot
controversial. Okay.
Hot take. Now, obviously, I do think there are levels of happiness that are achieved when you get a material possession.
Sure.
But kind of under the tone of that, what I was trying to hint at is exactly what Joshua Martin at Call Me Rig Daddy said. Making something with a camera will.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. But we had some great responses. Halide, the iPhone app, they said buying a camera app, on the other hand.
I love Chris Brockhurst right here. You spelled Nikon wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
Just rip in peace, Nikon.
The answer is false. Was I right? Agree to disagree? Yeah, so some really great responses here. Tyler Solomon, great. Now you tell me. Pretty sure the S1H is making me happy right now.
Obviously, buying a new camera does give you that hint of dopamine, that hit of dopamine, rather,
Yeah.
that you want, and you unbox it, and it's all new, and that's all great and stuff. But I get what you're putting down. It's just...
Yeah, it doesn't sustain you. There's no substance. There's no nutrients.
And then the next one will come out, and then you'll be like, this is a piece of garbage. Get out of here.
But for some reason, this tweet just kind of went crazy viral for me.
Yeah.
339,000 views, 93 retweets, 181 quote retweets.
Wow.
So it struck a nerve with people. I wasn't trying to necessarily make a hot take. I was trying to make a point.
Is this like a shower thought with Dave? Or
Yeah,
is this
pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but remember that, boys and girls, cameras will not make you happy. Nothing will truly satisfy you unless you're seeking the goodness of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
That's the main point I'm trying to make.
Right.
So anyways, R6 Mark II.
Oh, we're just getting right into the R6 Mark II, are we? Okay.
So yeah, you have purchased the R6 Mark II, or you're in the process of purchasing it.
Right.
You just got back from a project where you were shooting for how many days?
4 days, I think.
4 days. All Canon shoot. And this was the premiere, this is the flagship moment for this camera.
It was the debut.
The debut. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So tell me, what happened with the R6 Mark II on this video shoot?
So the shoot we were doing, we were in Dallas, and basically it was a mixture of different things. So we were doing, I was shooting a lot of B-roll of this. It was a conference called NADA. It's for like car dealers. It's kind of interesting thing. But doing a lot of B-roll, so I had it rigged up on the Ronin 3 Pro, and it worked great for that. It worked phenomenal for that, actually. But another thing that we were doing, which I do a lot with this guy, Jim Cook, is we were doing kind of like live streams. And something I do with them pretty regularly with different jobs and stuff. And so we rigged up his 2 R5s, and then we rigged up the R6, and we're getting everything, we're testing everything to make sure it's going to work fine. We get the feed, we're doing it wirelessly because it's like on the go live streaming. It's kind of fun. But we ran into a small issue. The Canon R6 Mark II can do a clean out, but it can't record while doing a clean out, which is a huge deal for the kinds of shoots that we're doing, because we're always recording on cameras as well as doing a live cut. So yeah, basically for all things live streams, we had a C70 there as well. So my camera was just MIA for all that, and we ended up having to use the C70. So for a whole aspect, for half of the
you were forced to use a better camera.
Right. It was forced into it. Well, actually, what's interesting is that because we were doing live streams, we were just using the in-camera profiles. We're not shooting on any log.
Yeah.
The in-camera profiles between the R5s and the C70 are pretty different, actually. So whenever we would cut between the angles, it was pretty obvious which one was the C70 in terms of it just looked different.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a bummer because you kind of want when you're
Is
switching.
that even with the EOS standard and EOS neutral profiles? Did you play around with those?
We did play with the standard one, but it was one of those things where we didn't really have time once we figured it out. So we were in a pinch, so we just kind of went with it. So we ended up using the C70 for our wide shot so that it felt different enough that the color change just didn't really matter as much. But yeah, so the R6 Mark II, it is a good camera in terms of Canon. But that, if you do any live stream work and you're thinking about snagging this camera and you do record to camera as well as just do a live stream switch, don't recommend it. In fact, it doesn't work.
Is that true as well for the, because I'm pretty sure you could plug it in over USB and use it as a direct live stream camera via USB. I wonder if you can record internally while it's plugged into your computer just over USB. That wasn't your use case?
No,
like you wouldn't have even been able to do that because I would imagine you were doing an ATEM switcher thing.
Yes, we were.
The workaround for that would be to just use an Atomos recorder, right, in between.
Right, but I mean, at that point, it's getting a little goofy. In reality, it's not the right camera for the job. That's just it. So.
Unless you don't care about in-camera recording.
Unless you don't care about that, yes. In which case, it is fine. You could record in camera if you weren't doing clean HDMI out.
Oh, weird.
Which is...
What's the point of that?
What's the point? I guess for the YouTubers that want to record their settings and record the shot, I guess. But yeah, it's just kind of, It's another thing with Canon, right? Just add it to the list.
Yeah, so everybody... if you have any insight on this too, by the way, this was just in the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a workaround that we don't know about. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please do.
So what does that mean for you? Because a lot of the work that you do with this guy, Jim Cook, requires this ability.
Yeah. So, I mean, I straight up just asked him, I was like, when we figured this out, I was like, so ditch it? Like what's the plan here? What's the protocol? And he said, no, he said, probably just keep it, but then we'll know that it's just not usable for this stuff. So we'll use other stuff.
Or again, if you plan for it with an Atomos, on
sure. I mean, he has access to other R5s. So we'll just not use it for those things. But then for other things, if he has me shoot a wedding or something, this will be fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So he's not going to take it against you on that?
No, it's really against Canon.
Yeah.
It's just another knock. I keep...
maybe it's a firmware update too. They could just solve it with a firmware.
Yeah, I keep bringing up Sony every time I'm with them now.
Oh, yeah?
Just to see.
Dude, he would love... I feel like if he went full tilt, he would actually enjoy the process.
I think he would too, but he has such a legacy with Canon. I don't know that I don't think he'll ever switch.
Well, while we're on that topic, let's go to our next topic, which is EF lenses on the Lumix.
Okay.
So hear me out,
okay,
because it is interesting.
Yeah.
There was a great video. There's a guy named Josh Cameron. We actually met him in Japan on the Lumix trip, and he did a great video titled, "Is the Lumix S5 autofocus still amazing using EF lenses?"
Okay.
So everybody go check out this video. It's on his channel. But it is really quite impressive. Using EF lenses and the Sigma adapter, basically we're finding, and Tyler Stallman and I have been talking about this, but based on some of the videos that I've seen and based on my own experience, because I do have the Sigma adapter and I own a bunch of EF lenses.
Okay, so you've tested this too.
The autofocus performance on the S5 II is totally in line with native lens performance.
It's as good, you're saying?
It's as good, yes, straight up. It is as good, and in this video you can actually see some examples of it. So this is him comparing it to the Lumix version. There's no wobbling back and forth.
Yeah.
And it performs just as good as the Lumix native lens.
It seems pretty snappy.
And the only downsides are depending on the EF lens itself. And ironically, I would love to do some tests myself on my C70 versus the S5 II. But it actually looked like some of these lenses were actually performing better on the Lumix than even on a Canon body. So yeah, so in this
That's
example
really
here,
snappy.
you can see how quickly he's just tapping the screen and it's going back and forth. It's not doing the fluttering thing because of the phase detect autofocus. His example showed that the 16 to 35 2.8 version 3, which is the lens that we're using right now on the C70, is the best performing one, but it's also because it's the most recent EF lens.
Right.
It was like one of the last EF lenses made.
So this is another solid reason if you're on the Canon system, but you're like, my glass, I don't want to give up the glass, which totally makes sense, right? Because really, when you invest in a camera system, you're not investing in the camera as much as you're investing in the lenses, at least for most people.
Exactly.
For instance, Jim Cook, he has lenses that are even 13 years old that he's still using.
Yeah, out the wazoo.
Yeah, he has so many lenses, all for the Canon system.
And he doesn't have many. I think he has like one RF lens, right? Like,
no, he's building that up now. So I think he has 3 now.
Okay. Well, he still has a ton of EF though.
Oh yeah.
So if you're a Canon shooter and you happen to own a bunch of EF lenses, not only is the Vlog to C-Log 2 conversion actually adequate and doable, but now based on these examples here, and here's some face tracking with, this is the 85 millimeter at f1.4. And it's tracking with no problems, almost as if it's a native lens on a Lumix body. This is really unheard of to have this type of performance on competing brands.
Yeah.
Canon obviously has the adapter from RF to EF, and it works very well because it's Canon to Canon.
So it's also then the Sigma adapter that's really good then too, right? Because obviously you're putting something in between, which is almost never a good idea in terms of quality. Like if you're sticking another piece of glass in between, for example, it's almost usually not a great idea. In this case, it seems to be working great. It's amazing.
Yeah. So very cool. I need to do my own tests, compare it to an actual Canon camera, because I don't think Josh had a Canon camera. But again, you can just see in this footage, if you're watching the video, how remarkably reliable this is. And I think this is a big deal. The fact that you can get a camera that's $2,000 that has the ability to have, dual native ISO, great Vlog to C-Log conversion, amazing, best in class IBIS, great autofocus, full-size HDMI. You can record and live stream at the same time.
I guess one of the biggest negatives against Lumix probably would have been, and so you maybe disagree, but is their lens lineup. Sure. Obviously not saying their lenses aren't good. They are. It's just in terms of compared to Sony and Canon glass. Well, compared to Canon, there's more options with the Sigma variants. Every Sigma lens that exists is available on L mount, which is great.
Which includes they have a wonderful 24 to 70 2.8. That's the same one that Zach has. Oh yeah. It's the same lens that's on Sony as it is on Lumix, and obviously, they still have some work to do to build it out. Right. I personally really love their little primes. We're using the S5 II on Connor's camera right now with the 85 millimeter f1.8. Yeah. And one of my favorite little features on that camera is the focus limiter. I've never used it, but we're using it right now. Basically, I told the camera, focus right on the microphone and then a little bit past Connor's head, but don't go beyond that.
That's pretty cool.
And in a way, it's sort of like a face-only mode from Canon, except on Lumix, but not really. But it is cool because if there were something going on in the background, it's not going to distract it.
Right. Yeah. So if it has a freak out moment for some reason, which it shouldn't, because it works great, you're not going to have it, going all the way to close focus or back focus.
Yeah.
Love that.
Exactly. You like my little notepad?
I do. I've been eyeballing it. It's wholesome in a way. It's great.
It's a wholesome notepad.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's a wholesome process more than the notepad itself.
So literally the day that we did our shoot last week.
Yeah. And I didn't even, did they just I don't know how that flew under my radar.
I think the day before they announced it, but I just wasn't on social media.
Yeah, I guess. See it. Well, neither was I then.
But they refreshed their MacBook Pro line.
Wow.
So now both of our MacBook Pro M1 Maxes are extinct.
Yep, they're old now.
They're old news.
We don't even want them anymore. No, that's not true at all, actually. These are cool. They're doing some more cool things with it. But it's our version that we got was the real overhaul. This is
totally.
I was watching Marquez Brownlee's video, which I'm guessing you probably saw as well, but he was just basically saying, he's like, it is an improvement and it is great, but if you have the M1 Max or Pro, probably don't need to upgrade, because it's like a 20 to 30% improvement on certain things, which is really exciting. But
We haven't even talked about what it is yet.
Oh, it's the M2.
The M2 Pro and the M2 Max.
I mean, come on. Everyone knows what we're talking about. But you're right. I didn't say it yet. Excuse me.
No, yeah. So yeah, like last week they announced it. By now you may have already seen some reviews like you're saying. What's most interesting to me about the M2 is that it is marginally, I mean, it is better.
Yeah,
but
marginally sounds... It's definitely like a little above marginal improvement, but it's still not like... It's not like, oh my gosh, I need this.
Especially coming from an M1 Max.
Yeah.
We're getting better battery life, apparently.
I think this is like an hour better.
Yeah. Up to 96 gigabytes of RAM.
That's pretty amazing.
Rather than 64, which was the max previously. Mm-hmm. But I never even tapped 64.
No, I think mine's only 32. It might be 64. I can't even remember what I got.
Same body, same HDMI out, but now it's a HDMI 2.1.
Not quite the same, yeah. It's HDMI 2.1, yeah. So that's cool. That's 8K support, which is cool.
And higher frame rates.
And then new Bluetooth and new Wi-Fi 6 or something.
Faster Wi-Fi. Everything's better.
Yeah, everything is slightly better.
Same display. Same notch. Mm-hmm. I wish they would get rid of the notch.
I think they'll probably get rid of the notch in the phone first. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then that'll trickle into the computers.
I mean, we do have the dynamic island right now, which is pretty cool.
I do like that.
I've grown to like it quite a bit.
It's funny. I was doing a Zoom call with Photo Joseph, and I was sharing my screen with him, and he was like, "What is this?" Because he's on a PC. He was like, "What is this like blacked out section on the top of your screen share?" I was like, oh, I'm on a MacBook Pro. And he's like, oh, that's what it is. That's the notch. It's just literally on his, I think it was like either whited out or blacked out on his screen share end. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's true. We still got Touch ID in the thing, which is great.
I love that.
I wish it had Face ID though, right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, I would be afraid of that, not because of Face ID. I use Face ID all the time, but I don't want them to get rid of Touch ID.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? I like Touch ID a lot. So I think it should have both. But I think if they move to Face ID, they'll just get rid of Touch ID.
Probably.
Just like with the phones.
But the reason Touch ID probably is the right solution to unlocking your Mac, getting into passwords and stuff, is because it really is a distinct, it's a manual decision that you're making to put your finger there. Whereas if you're on a laptop, Face ID is there.
Mm-hmm. So if purchases and stuff,
it would just instantly scan your face every time because your face is exactly where it needs to be.
Well, maybe how it would work is similar to like your phone where you have to like double tap the power button and then it does it. So like maybe that button, same thing, instead of it being Touch ID. But at that point, just make it Touch ID.
Yeah. I'm sure they've already weighed all these pros and cons. And I do think it would add a little bit of thickness to the display because they can't get it to fit in that small size
yet.
But I do, instead of going over all the minutia and the details of M2 Pro and M2 Max, which is essentially just better than the last.
Yep.
I do want to talk about something that we both know and love, and that is the Apple Silicon transition. So if there's anybody, and by the way, another thing that they upgraded was the Mac Mini.
Yeah.
And they gave us now, this didn't exist previously, an M2 Pro version of the Mac Mini.
Oh, that's cool.
Which gives you kind of that perfect, like, you need a little bit more, but you don't want to spend too much money way to get in here. The M2 Pro has significant improvements in GPU and CPU performance compared to the standard M2.
Right. You do still need a monitor with this purchase, but I think even with a decent monitor, you're still coming in under the MacBook.
Yeah, you need a monitor, keyboard and mouse. But those are all things that you can buy the Apple version of that. It'll be seriously expensive if you do that. But you could, in theory, just buy a cheap little display, 4K display off Amazon, and whatever, and then upgrade as you will, And the great thing about this too, which I think is better than the iMac, is that the computer is now separate from the display. So if you want to invest some money into the Apple Studio display, which is a wonderful 5K display, you spend your $1,000 on that. Year over year or every 2 or 3 years, you can just swap out your Mac Mini
instead of buying the whole thing.
Yeah, but the display is still good. It's kind of insane when you think about the waste of, if you had an older Intel 27-inch 5K iMac, there's a beautiful display attached to that computer, and it's just collecting dust because now it's completely outdated.
That's a really great point. Do you think, because they didn't announce any new iMacs, which is almost surprising, unless they're just doing away with it?
I think this is it. I think this is the answer. The Mac Studio is the Pro version, like it's like the iMac Pro.
Right.
With the display. And then now this M2 Pro Mac Mini is kind of your like mid-tier 27-inch iMac kind of thing. It's my thought.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But with that, if there's anybody still holding off who's an Apple person, or even somebody who is a PC person who does video editing and production,
right?
What would you say to that person in terms of Apple Silicon and kind of this transition? Do you think, now obviously you can buy an M1 Pro or M1 Max for a bargain probably?
Yeah, I mean, like my answer to that, if you're on PC and you have no interest in Apple, that's fine. I mean, like if that's really the route you want to go down, I will say I have a PC and I have a MacBook.
And you can't game on a Mac, really.
No, you can't. But I think I do really love having a PC, but all that has done is make me appreciate my MacBook more. You know what I mean?
How so?
Like,
what are some things about the PC that...
the PC is cool. It has RGB lighting and it can do things that my Mac can't do in terms of gaming, but it also does that. It crashes. It really does crash a lot, and it always needs an update all the time, and it's just all those annoying things about PC that it's just how it works.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I don't like my PC. I really do, but it makes me appreciate my MacBook. So I would recommend looking into it, but just look for the M1 Max. I think, if you want to save a few bucks, because like you're saying, they're probably going to go on sale right now. You'll probably be able to find a smoking deal. And for 20% increase in performance, I don't know that it'd be worth spending all the way up to the maxed out M2, unless you're doing some really high-end work, but at that point, you already have it.
Yeah, exactly. I think just like Mark has said in his video, and many other reviewers, year over year, you shouldn't really be thinking about upgrading if you're in the pro tier of computers. You should be spending your money on the front end to buy, the maximum you can afford for what you're doing. And then in theory, that should last you 5 to maybe even longer than that years, like 5 to 10 years.
Well, 10 years might be pushing it a little bit, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, our friend off to our left right now, Malachi Salih, is using a computer from 2014, I think.
Don't recommend.
So we're almost 10 years. What's that? 2015. Yeah. So we're 8 years in, and he's still kicking over here, getting his job done, because Resolve is actually capable enough to perform. Malachi, when you used Premiere, was it harder on your machine than Resolve?
I couldn't even edit GoPro footage.
Wow.
He said if you can't hear him, he said he can't even edit GoPro footage
on a Premiere.
So I mean that's software.
Just wasn't optimized.
Yeah, that's software optimization. So it doesn't mean you can't make it work. But
he's also on an Intel, which alone is well outdated beyond what Apple Silicon may be in 10 years.
Yeah.
It's just such a what?
I think if you're on a 2015 Intel MacBook, you should be looking at even just an M1 regular,
absolutely,
or even the M2 regular, because it's $1,200 or something.
I know, yeah.
For that, I mean that's insane. That's nuts.
Yeah, you can, if you are really on a budget, consider getting that mid-tier M2. I wouldn't get the lowest because there is a bit of a caveat now with the M2.
Oh yeah, what's this?
The 256 gig version. The speed of that SSD is half the speed.
Oh, so interesting.
If you go up to 512 gigabyte SSD, you get the faster. It's what we're used to with our hard drives on the M1. That wasn't the case with the M1. All of the hard drives had full speed. But now, for some reason, the lowest end has a slower speed. Also, 256 gigs isn't enough for video professionals.
Right.
Usually, it's hard to get by with that. I would say at least 512 is your minimum. A terabyte, ideal.
I think a terabyte in today's world, if you're editing with any sort of larger files, I think a terabyte is usually the minimum. And
the way that I work and stuff, I did use the M1 Mac Mini for a while, but the way that I work and stuff, I really recommend a laptop. Even if you're using a monitor and a keyboard for the majority of your time, having the ability to go portable, whether you're on an airplane or whether you're on a desk like right now and I'm using my laptop as a screen that's low because I'm not using a giant monitor, it's perfect for this use case.
I don't know. That's quitter talk. Take that Mac Mini everywhere, you know?
No, the Mini is very small and compact. And when I worked for my cousins, I had a Mac Mini. And what I would do is I had a monitor set up here, and then I had them buy me a monitor over there and a keyboard over there. Yeah. So I would just unplug it and plug it in, and it was pretty easy.
I'm pretty sure you've taken it to a coffee shop or two. I'm pretty sure that's happened.
I used an iPad as a screen, which you can do. But realistically, a laptop is the way to go.
Right.
But unfortunately, when you get into laptop territory, even the lowest end M2 Pro 14-inch is starting at $2,000 now. So that's significantly more than the M2 Pro Mac Mini, which was $1299.
Right.
You're paying for that beautiful display. You're paying for the Touch ID, the trackpad, all that stuff. So
but still, $2,000 for a computer that has that kind of an output is
it's insane.
More than reasonable. It's
Totally.
actually very affordable in terms of what it's capable of. So,
and in the past, even just 2 or 3 years ago, pre M1, what this M2 Pro, the base level, even the M2 normal is able to do in terms of performance, you would have to have spent $5,000-$6,000.
Right.
I know, at least from my experience, I had a maxed out modern, I think it was 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, totally spec'd it out. I spent like $4,000 on it. And then the M1 came out, and the M1 Mac Mini, which cost $599 at the base level, which is the one I ordered, was like outperforming it in terms of editing speed. It was slower on the export because it didn't have the GPU performance.
Right.
But in terms of like day-to-day editing and the timeline, it was so snappy, especially in Final Cut.
Well, I remember we had the Mac Pro, the cheese grater, with Armando when I was doing stuff with him. I think it was like a $22,000 bill or something crazy. And the M1 13-inch computer came out, and that thing was smoking in terms of just like using it, optimal performance compared to the $22,000 Mac Pro that came out like not even a year ago at that point. So, I mean, Apple Silicon is nuts, and it's only getting better.
It's time to switch. If you've been holding off, the fact that these new machines are here with the new M2 variants, the Pro and the Max, and obviously I would assume a Studio will come at some time this year, as well as a true, cheese grater Mac Pro, which they've promised us. But the MacBook Pro has the highest recommendation, even if you're using it primarily as a desktop Mac with a monitor and keyboard. The fact that you can just unplug it and walk out the door, go to a coffee shop, go on the plane, whatever you need to do, get the work done on a laptop. It's performing at desktop level. In the past, there was always a compromise with the laptop because it just wasn't powerful enough because it's so small.
It's like you can only fit so many things in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but now the M2 is so small. The M1 and the M2 is the chip itself. System on a chip is what it's called, SoC. Right. The whole computer is on one motherboard, basically the SSD, the RAM, the GPU, CPU, it's all on one chip. So it's just this small little thing. And then the rest of this MacBook is mostly battery. So it's pretty amazing what they've been able to do. And it's obviously from the billions of dollars they've invested into the iPhone and iPad technology all these years. It's a similar process.
Right.
So they're using all the stuff they've learned over the last decade making iPhones in the billions now for Macintosh computers. Well worth the transition. Let us know in the comments if you agree or disagree.
We know you agree.
Yeah, the silicon transition is one of the biggest, and probably will be remembered as one of the biggest shifts in our time for as professionals.
Oh yeah,
it really is. And if you're not on the bandwagon yet, now's a great time to get on, and you don't have to actually spend that much money.
Yeah,
relatively in terms of professional computers.
Again, look for an M1 Pro or M1 Max.
Yeah,
and you're gonna have a smoking computer.
Okay, so I want to share this. I don't know if you looked at it or watched it yet. Did you watch MrBeast's recent video?
No, the most recent one I watched was Antarctica.
I want to bring this up because it's a bit of a controversy on the internet about it. The title is 1,000 Blind People See for the First Time.
So if it's a controversy, and I haven't seen it, I'm guessing that they weren't blind.
No, they were blind.
Oh, okay.
The controversy, so basically, I'll play it in the background. We won't actually watch it, but basically, MrBeast applied his format, which is this kind of extreme, big clickbaity ideas and concepts, and he applied it to something good, which is true. He literally had hundreds of people in America who needed a cataract surgery, essentially. It's a very repairable and curable form of blindness.
Okay.
It's often not something that you're born with. It's something that comes with age or...
Yeah. My dad had that surgery.
Yeah. So basically at the beginning of this video, this doctor says almost half of the people in this country that are blind or in the world that are blind can be cured of it with a 10-minute surgery.
Yeah.
I would recommend you guys check it out because it is a slower pace actually compared to his other videos. And I do feel like he did it very tastefully. He's not exploiting these people. He is offering a free service to them that changes their life.
It looked like he gave someone money at least.
Yeah, there was a woman who he just gave her $10,000. There's a couple other people. There was a student who was like in his early 20s and he paid for his whole college.
Yeah.
Like a $50,000 college scholarship.
Okay. So what's the controversy?
The controversy and the issue that people are having is that he's exploiting these people for views. That's the idea.
Okay. It's like the class. I mean, this happened before with YouTube, right? Wasn't there like a trend where people were finding homeless people and giving them like $100 or something?
Yeah.
And exploiting them for, in a sense, exploiting them for a ton of views. And then they were making way more than that $100 off the video. I get where that's energy is coming from, but based on what I'm now seeing, it looks like I think the thing about MrBeast, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the content itself. It's just my personal taste.
It's for younger audiences generally.
That being said, from what I understand about him, which is somewhat limited, it seems like he has a really good heart and he's coming at it from a good place. So
yeah, I
don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with this. I mean, these people honestly needed help, and if he didn't come along and do it, who was going to do it?
Yeah.
So is he making money off this? Sure, but you also got to understand he takes most all of this money and pours it back into the next video or into the philanthropy channel where he's helping even more people. So
and I don't think he's not exploiting them because these are people who gave their consent to be in the video.
Right.
So it's like, hey, I would like to pay for you to have a surgery where we're going to essentially cure your blindness. The only thing is you have to be in my video, sign this thing. They're like, heck yeah, where do I sign?
Right. It's not like before where people would just approach a homeless guy, record him without them knowing, give him $100 and then that's but more exploitation. So yeah. No, okay.
And then there's some really heartfelt moments here. I like you can sort of see the transition happening, and Hayden Hillier-Smith talked about this at his talk at Vid Summit. He really wants to see YouTube slowly transition into more traditional filmmaking in terms of the storytelling, having, actual, real depth to it with payoff with Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. His theory is that the idea of retention in terms of retention's sake, the way that MrBeast has done it in the past, which is almost like a bunch of TikTok videos put together into one long 20-minute video of just... big extreme thing after big extreme thing after big extreme thing.
Right.
Like you don't have to do that. You could also have a compelling story, and that alone gives retention. Right. But you're also maybe sacrificing some views because people will get bored.
I don't know. He's sitting at 70 mil on this.
Well, that's the thing that's fascinating to me is that this is a big
76 mil.
This is a big performer for him. He posted a tweet about this. He was like, I'm surprised by the results of this. This is, he always, he often gets over 50 million views per video, but the velocity of this has gone faster than normal.
Right.
And I think it's because it's a more heartfelt, better, kind of less exploitive in terms of money type of thing.
It feels less materialistic. Yeah, I think it's kind of what you're going for. And I don't know. Maybe I should give this one a go. I think this one might be a little more my speed in terms of MrBeast videos. I did watch the video that Dan Mace now was doing over on the philanthropy channel.
Oh yeah.
And I actually liked that one a lot. It was pretty well done. Yeah, it's because Dan Mace is now, which Dan Mace is was helping Casey Neistat at a point shoot and I think edit his videos. And I think he did a pretty good job, even though that was kind of short-lived. And so he continued doing his own thing, but now MrBeast has hired him. I personally like this video a lot, especially when it comes to MrBeast content.
Yeah, so I mean, MrBeast is kind of the king of YouTube at the moment, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon.
Right.
So I think it's important to watch him and see what he's doing and study it. And, hopefully it seems like he has a good heart. He's not, ironically, some things can come across materialistic, but I think deep down he is a good guy, and we'll just
hopefully
see.
I mean, I don't know him personally, but from what he projects on the internet and what I see other people, like, cause he's not just in his own content, he's in other people's stuff, and you get a little more taste of the humanity of him, because he's just kind of a character on his own videos for sure. So it's cool to see him in other stuff, and he's like, oh, he's a human being. I
think that's the biggest criticism, is that for the sake of views, he is forfeiting real authenticity,
right.
And he's putting himself and other people in extreme circumstances to get a reaction, to get an emotion out of them. But in doing that, he's cutting out a lot of the things that make him human, that make all of us human.
Right.
It might be flashy and get our attention and make us watch till the end. But then you compare that to like Casey Neistat when he was doing his vlog, you felt like a part of his life, and you get a real sense of who he is. He was really vulnerable.
You don't watch MrBeast videos and go, oh, I understand who MrBeast is. But you do watch Casey Neistat videos and get a better idea of who Casey Neistat is.
Sure.
So you're right. That's a really good comparison.
But you have, in terms of filmmaking too, it's like MrBeast is like the Marvel of, YouTube. And then, Casey would be kind of your Oscar award winning, film with deep story to it.
Right. And both are YouTube videos.
Cool. So I want to give a quick shout out to our Spotify listeners. Spotify recently added the ability to put time code, essentially chapters, in the podcast.
Yeah.
They don't have chapter support like Apple Podcast and like Overcast and other apps. But if you go into the description of the show notes of the Spotify show, go ahead and check it out. I'm putting all of the time codes there for each section. Feel free to use that and utilize that if you want to skip around to certain parts, or you need to catch up on something and you want to go back to a certain area. Check the show notes, or essentially the description of this episode. You can see where you can skip around.
Yeah.
That being said, 95% of our audience is not on Spotify. Basically, like 90-ish% is on iOS devices.
Yeah.
Primarily being on Apple Podcast. So if you're an Apple Podcast listener, or even if you're not, but you happen to have the app, it would really mean the world to us if you would go leave a rating and review. There's actually a lot of shows named Golden Hour, not just the one
not just
with
the funny
Chris
one.
D'Elia and Brandon Schaub. There's actually some other creators as well that have a show called Golden Hour. So because of that, if somebody were to look for our podcast and do a search on the Apple Podcast and just simply search Golden Hour, ours is not the first result. So if you guys leave more reviews and ratings, that kind of boosts the algorithm, if you will, of like engagement and listenership. We do have great listenership on the show. We've actually been growing. We're around 3,000 to 4,000 listeners per episode, which is awesome.
That's great.
We're also looking for sponsors for this show. So if you're listening to this and you happen to be a sponsor, like somebody who would want to sponsor
a potential sponsor,
potential sponsor, please reach out. And I also just want to put this out there too. I'm trying to be better about being open to all of you and utilizing my platform to help people. So if you have anything in your life, like literally anything regarding filmmaking, business, marriage, whatever, I am opening up myself to you if you want. So feel free to reach out to me personally on my social media or on the contact page on Golden Hour. I just want to leave that as an open invitation. If you want to talk about your faith, marriage, life, whatever, I just want to be a little bit more helpful to anyone who may or may not need my help.
Yeah.
So leave a rating and review, and check out the chapters on Spotify if you're a Spotify listener. We do have chapters in Apple Podcasts and other platforms as well. I still haven't figured out the video on Spotify, but the problem with video on Spotify is that we would lose all the chapters in the audio.
You can't do both.
You can't do both. It's one or the other. So
I don't know. Let us know which one you guys would prefer more. That's interesting. Personally, I think, because I listen on Spotify to podcasts, I like the video.
You like seeing the videos?
So my vote would be for the video, but that's just my vote.
And the cool thing about the time code in the description is that does translate over to the audio platform as well. But you don't have the nice little chapter breaks that Apple Podcasts and Overcast do. And again, like 90% of our audience is on those platforms, not on Spotify.
Right.
So they're never going to see the video there. And if they want to watch the video, we would rather you go to the YouTube channel anyways.
Truth.
Because that actually, we just got monetized.
Yeah.
It's big news.
Yay.
After a year and a half of the channel existing, we finally got enough subscribers and viewership to get monetized. So obviously we would rather you watch it on YouTube instead of Spotify anyways.
Truth.
So maybe that answers
that question. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Right on. Hey, see, we're still figuring it out.
Until Spotify opens up maybe some ad revenue or something. But
right. Or Spotify wants to give us $100 million deal like Joe Rogan.
Just like Joe Rogan.
Could happen.
That's the thing is the only Spotify video podcasts that I know of are the ones that Spotify bought out.
Right. Truth.
But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the show. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out. And we'll
see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.